Your emotions are precious. In a world that often feels like it's constantly demanding more of us, it's so easy to lose sight of just how valuable our feelings really are. We live in a time where people are often caught up in the hustle of trying to impress others, seeking validation from outside sources and constantly giving of themselves without thinking about what they're getting back in return. But your emotions are a gift. They're a part of who you are, and they deserve to be handled with care, not discarded or taken for granted by those who don't truly see your worth. We often find ourselves pouring out our hearts to others, sharing our deepest thoughts, struggles, dreams, and hopes. And that's a beautiful thing. It's part of what makes us human. But there's something important that we often forget. Not everyone will appreciate what you give. Not everyone will treat your emotions with the same respect you offer them. It's a tough reality, but it's true. And this is where wisdom comes in. You have to learn to recognize that some people don't deserve access to your heart. Some people are not capable of understanding the depth of what you feel. And some people may not value your emotions the way you do. It's easy to be disappointed when people don't reciprocate the love or understanding we give. It's easy to feel like something is wrong with us when we offer our feelings to others only to have them dismissed, ignored, or misunderstood. But I want you to know today that the problem isn't you. It's about knowing where and how to invest your heart. Your emotions are precious, and just like anything that's valuable, they need to be protected. You wouldn't give your most prized possession to someone who doesn't care for it, would you? Your emotions are the same way. They're too valuable to waste on people who won't appreciate them. This doesn't mean that you have to shut yourself off from the world or that you should never share your feelings with others. But it does mean you have to be discerning about who gets to know the real you, who gets access to your most vulnerable moments. The right people will cherish your emotions and they'll handle them with the respect and care they deserve. The wrong people, however, will take them for granted, use them against you, or fail to understand their significance. It's up to you to decide where your heart goes, and that means learning to be selective in who you allow into your emotional world. We have a natural tendency to want to connect with others. It's in our nature to seek understanding, support, and love. We want to share our highs and lows, our dreams, and our struggles. But not everyone has the capacity to meet us where we are emotionally. And when we continue to pour ourselves into relationships that don't nurture our emotions, we can quickly find ourselves feeling drained, unappreciated, and even questioning our worth. This is where we need to stop and recognize that we're giving too much to people who don't see us for who we truly are. When your emotions are disregarded, it can feel like you're invisible, like what you feel doesn't matter. But that's simply not true. Your emotions are valid and they deserve to be treated with care. Powerful. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be understood, but there's also nothing wrong with protecting yourself from those who can't or won't understand. It's not about being rude or distant. It's about being wise with where you invest your emotional energy. Your feelings are too important to be treated lightly. Sometimes we stay in relationships or continue to share our emotions with people who aren't capable of giving back what we need. All because we don't want to seem difficult or closed off. We fear that if we stop giving or if we set boundaries, we'll push people away or make them think we don't care. But the reality is, when you keep giving to people who don't value you, you're not helping them or yourself. You're allowing yourself to be drained, and in the process, you're missing out on the opportunity to form connections with those who will truly appreciate and respect your emotions. The power of setting boundaries in our relationships cannot be overstated. Setting emotional boundaries doesn't mean you're being selfish. It means you're protecting yourself. It means you're recognizing that your emotions are valuable and that you deserve to be treated with kindness and understanding. It means you're choosing to invest in relationships that will nurture you, that will appreciate your heart, and that will be there for you when you need support. Boundaries are about self-respect and self-care, not shutting people out. It's also important to understand that some people may not have the emotional maturity to handle what you're offering. They may not understand your feelings, or they might be going through their own struggles and unable to be there for you the way you need. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means that not everyone is in a position to meet you emotionally. And that's okay. You can't expect everyone to be able to handle your emotions the way you do. But you can expect them to treat you with respect, to be considerate of your feelings, and to be there for you in ways that honor who you are. When you learn to protect your emotions, you begin to see the value in waiting for the right people. You begin to understand that you don't need to pour your heart into relationships that don't reciprocate your love and care. When you stop wasting your emotions on people who don't value them, you free yourself to connect with those who truly appreciate you. These are the people who will listen, understand, and offer support when you need it most. These are the relationships that will help you grow, heal, and become the best version of yourself. So don't waste your emotions on people who don't value them. Your heart is too precious. Your feelings are too valuable, and you deserve to be surrounded by people who recognize that and treat you with the love and respect you deserve. Guard your heart, protect your emotions, and don't be afraid to set boundaries when needed. You have the right to protect what's most precious to you. And when you do, you'll create space for the right people to come into your life. People who will see your worth, appreciate your heart, and value your emotions the way you deserve. We all have a deep, innate need for connection. It's human nature to seek companionship, love, and validation from others. We long to be seen, understood, and valued, especially in our most vulnerable moments. Yet as we navigate through life, we often encounter people who don't treat our emotions with the care and respect they deserve. And here's the hard truth. Not everyone will appreciate the depth of your feelings. Some people will fail to recognize your worth, misunderstand your intentions, or dismiss your emotions altogether. And when this happens, it can be disheartening and painful. But I want to remind you today, your feelings are too precious to waste on people who don't value them. Think about it. Your emotions are an integral part of who you are. They shape your experiences, define your relationships, and guide you through life's ups and downs. Your emotions reflect your heart, your soul, and your humanity. And that makes them incredibly valuable. They are not meant to be shared with just anyone, nor should they be given freely to people who don't acknowledge the power of what you're offering. When you pour your heart out to someone who doesn't care, it can leave you feeling drained, undervalued, and unappreciated. Your emotional energy is limited, and when it's constantly being given to the wrong people, it doesn't just affect your mental state, it can impact your overall well-being. When you continually share your emotions with people who don't recognize or value them, you risk losing sight of your own worth. You start to question if what you feel really matters, if your emotions are too much, or if you're simply not enough. That's why it's so important to realize that your feelings are worth protecting. You don't have to give everything to everyone. You don't have to explain yourself to people who won't take the time to truly understand you. You don't need to justify your emotions to those who have no intention of validating them. The act of sharing your feelings requires vulnerability. And vulnerability is a precious thing. When you allow someone to see the real you, when you share your hopes, fears, and dreams, it's a gift. It takes courage to be open and honest, to lay bare the emotions that often lie deep within your heart. But when you give that gift to someone who doesn't appreciate it, it can feel like a betrayal to your own heart. That's why it's so important to be discerning about who you open up to. Not everyone will honor your vulnerability, and not everyone will treat your emotions with the respect they deserve. And when you recognize that, you'll be able to save your emotional energy for the people who truly value you. You may be thinking, but isn't it important to be open with others? Shouldn't I be transparent? The answer is yes, absolutely, but not with everyone. Transparency and vulnerability are important in building meaningful relationships, but they should be reserved for those who have proven they can handle what you share with them. It's about finding the right people who will listen without judgment, who will offer empathy and understanding, and who will cherish the trust you place in them. Those are the people you should open your heart to, not those who will dismiss you, belittle your feelings, or take advantage of your vulnerability. The reality is that some people are simply incapable of valuing what you bring to the table emotionally. This might be because they're focused on their own lives, struggling with their own issues, or perhaps they don't have the emotional capacity to connect with you in the way you need. But that doesn't make you or your emotions any less important. It just means that you need to adjust your expectations and be aware that not everyone will meet you at the level you're offering. And that's okay. It's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their limitations. When you realize this, it becomes easier to step back and stop pouring yourself into relationships that aren't reciprocating your emotional investment. It's also worth noting that some people might intentionally take advantage of your emotions. They may listen to your deepest thoughts, take your trust for granted, and then use your vulnerabilities against you. Unfortunately, there are people in this world who will manipulate your feelings for their own gain. When this happens, it's vital to recognize the warning signs and protect yourself from further harm. Again, your feelings are too valuable to be treated as a tool for manipulation or control. You deserve better than that. So, what do you do when you realize that you've been wasting your emotions on people who don't value them? First, recognize that it's not too late to change the course of your relationships. You can start setting boundaries, creating space, and choosing to invest your emotional energy in people who truly care about you. This doesn't mean you have to cut people out of your life completely. It means learning to discern when to share and when to keep your feelings to yourself. It means you start focusing on relationships where there is mutual respect, understanding, and care. These are the relationships that will build you up, not tear you down. These are the connections that will honor your emotions, show you the love and appreciation you deserve. Setting emotional boundaries is a powerful act of self-care. So powerful, it's about knowing your worth and making sure that you're not giving pieces of yourself to people who won't treat them with respect. It's about creating a space in your life where you feel safe, heard, understood, You don't have to over-explain yourself or justify your feelings to those who aren't ready to listen. Instead, you can focus on the people who truly value what you bring to the table, those who will honor your vulnerability and respect your emotional energy. Remember, your emotions are not something to be tossed around or ignored. They are a part of your story, and they deserve to be treated with care and reverence. By choosing to invest your feelings in people who see their worth, you protect your heart, protect your peace, and protect your joy. And when you do, you'll find that the right people will enter your life. People who appreciate you for who you are, not for what you can give them. People who will cherish your emotions, hold space for your vulnerabilities, and walk with you through both the highs and lows of life. When you stop wasting your feelings on people who don't value them, you open the door for the right people to step in, and that's when true emotional fulfillment begins. In life, we are often taught that kindness, vulnerability, and empathy are qualities we should practice with everyone we meet. And while these qualities are essential for building connections, there is a powerful and sometimes difficult lesson we must learn. Not everyone deserves access to our most personal feelings. Not everyone will appreciate the emotional depth we offer, and we must be careful not to waste our feelings on people who don't value or respect them. Your emotions are a precious and powerful part of who you are, and they deserve to be treated with care, understanding, and respect. We are all unique individuals with our own hopes, fears, dreams, and struggles. And our emotions are often the reflection of our most personal experiences, forming the core of who we are. When we allow ourselves to be open and vulnerable, we expose a part of ourselves that is deeply connected to our identity. This is why it is so important that we protect our emotions and only share them with those who understand their value. When we give our feelings to people who don't appreciate them, we not only risk feeling misunderstood, but we also risk diminishing the worth of what we feel. The reality is, not everyone is capable of handling the emotions we share with them. People have their own emotional baggage, distractions, and personal struggles, which means they may not be in a place to truly understand or appreciate what we're feeling. So powerful. This is especially true in relationships where one party is emotionally unavailable or incapable of being vulnerable in return. While they may be happy to receive the emotional energy you offer, they may not be able to reciprocate in a meaningful way. And when this happens, it can leave you feeling drained, unappreciated, and worst of all, alone. This is why it's so important to remember that you do not owe everyone an explanation or a deep insight into your emotions. You don't have to justify your feelings to people who won't take the time to understand them. The more you pour your emotional energy into relationships that are not nurturing or supportive, the more you risk losing sight of the importance of your own feelings. The more you give without receiving the same care in return, the more you lose your sense of self-worth. You start to question whether your emotions really matter or whether you are asking for too much when all you want is understanding. When you continually waste your feelings on people who don't value them, you begin to diminish your own sense of emotional importance. The truth is, you are worthy of being heard, understood, and respected. You deserve to be in relationships where your emotions are honored, where you can share your heart without fear of judgment or neglect. And when you recognize this, you empower yourself to stop giving to those who won't appreciate it and to start investing in people who truly care. It's a painful truth, but one that we must accept. Some people just aren't capable of valuing your emotions the way you do. Maybe it's because they're distracted by their own struggles, or maybe they simply don't know how to respond to your vulnerability. But that doesn't make you any less deserving of empathy or understanding. You don't have to force others to see your worth. You don't have to convince people that your feelings matter. You simply need to recognize that there are people who will appreciate your heart for what it is and treat your emotions with the respect and care they deserve. This doesn't mean you should close yourself off or shut people out. It simply means you need to be discerning about who you share your deepest emotions with. You need to learn when to open up and when to hold back. The people who truly value you will demonstrate their appreciation for your emotions through their actions, their words, and their willingness to listen and support you. These are the people who will respect your vulnerability and hold your feelings with the utmost care. Full. The reality is that life is too short to spend time and energy on people who won't value your emotions. Time is precious. Full. And your emotional energy is one of the most valuable things you have. The more you invest in people who don't appreciate you, full, the less energy you have to invest in the people who truly deserve it. When you waste your feelings on people who don't care, you leave yourself open to being hurtful, misunderstood, and emotionally drained. But when you recognize the importance of guarding your emotions and only sharing them with those who will nurture them, full, you protect yourself from the pain of feeling unappreciated, full. Another important aspect of this truth is the realization that you don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to justify your feelings, full, defend your actions, or convince anyone of your worth. You are worthy just as you are. Your emotions are valid and they matter, full. You don't have to beg for someone's attention or approval. When you stop giving your emotional energy to people who don't value it, full, you free yourself to focus on the relationships that truly matter. Those where your feelings are recognized, your vulnerabilities are met with compassion, full, and your heart is seen for the beautiful, valuable thing that it is. Full, learning to protect your emotions and stop wasting them on people who don't appreciate you is an act of self-care. It's a sign of self-respect, full, of knowing that you are deserving of love, understanding, and kindness. It's about recognizing that your emotional health is just as important as your physical health, full, and that you have the right to prioritize your well-being. Powerful. Oh, you don't have to explain why you're choosing to protect your feelings. You simply have to trust that it's the right choice for you, full. When you stop wasting your feelings on people who don't value them, you create space for the right people to come into your life. These are the people who will listen, full, who will love you for who you are, and who will value the depth of your emotions, full. And as you continue to invest your emotional energy in the relationships that truly matter, you'll find that your heart feels lighter, your spirit feels stronger, full, and your life is filled with more genuine, fulfilling connections. So don't waste another moment of your time or energy on people who don't value your emotions. Full, you deserve more than that. You deserve to be heard, understood, and loved. You deserve to be in relationships where your emotions are treated with the care, respect, full, and appreciation they deserve. And when you start to protect your feelings and invest in the right relationships, you'll find that your life is filled with more peace, full, joy, and emotional fulfillment than you ever thought possible. Emotions are one of the most powerful forces in our lives. They shape how we see the world, full, how we interact with others, and how we experience life's challenges and triumphs. Our feelings tell us when something is wrong or right, when to act, when to pause, full, and when to protect ourselves. Yet, despite the deep value emotions have in our lives, full, many of us make the mistake of pouring them into relationships that do not honor them. We waste our precious feelings on people who do not value them, full, who cannot reciprocate the depth of understanding we seek, or who simply fail to appreciate the vulnerability we share. If we are not careful, full, this can lead to emotional depletion, frustration, and a sense of unfulfillment. You may find yourself in relationships where you constantly give more than you receive, full, where you offer your heart and soul, only to have it dismissed, overlooked, or misunderstood. This is where the lesson becomes crucial. Full, never waste your feelings on people who do not value your emotions, full. There is no greater disservice to your heart and well-being than allowing your emotional energy to be drained by those who do not appreciate or respect it, full. Your emotions are powerful. They are the reflection of your innermost thoughts, desires, and experiences. They are deeply personal and, at times, profoundly vulnerable, full. When you open up to someone, when you share your most intimate feelings, you are offering them a piece of yourself that is fragile and significant. Full, and this gift should never be given lightly. Just as you wouldn't entrust your most prized possessions to someone who won't appreciate them. Full. You shouldn't entrust your heart to people who will disregard it or take it for granted. Yet, so often we find ourselves doing just that. Full. We open up to people who are not capable of meeting us emotionally, who don't have the emotional capacity to understand or support us in the ways we need. Full. One of the biggest dangers of wasting your emotions on people who don't value them is that it can leave you feeling unseen, unheard, and unloved. Full. It's an emotionally exhausting experience to pour your heart into someone who does not appreciate it. Full. To repeatedly invest time and energy into a relationship that drains you rather than replenishing you. This emotional imbalance can lead to feelings of rejection, full, worthlessness, and even confusion. We may begin to question our own emotional needs, wonder if we are asking for too much, full, or feel guilty for wanting more from our relationships. But the truth is your emotions are valuable, full. You have every right to seek out relationships that nourish and support you emotionally, where your feelings are not just tolerated, but celebrated and respected. Full. At some point, we all come to realize that not everyone is capable of handling our emotional needs. Some people may simply be unable to understand us, full, or they may be too focused on their own struggles to offer us the empathy and support we seek, full. That's not necessarily a reflection of you. It's a reflection of their own limitations. You are not responsible for filling the emotional gaps of others, full. And you certainly shouldn't feel compelled to justify your own feelings to those who are not in a position to appreciate them, full. The moment you recognize that some people will never truly understand or value what you share with them, full, you can begin the process of protecting your emotional energy and shifting your focus to those who will, full. It is important to remember that not everyone needs to know everything about you. You don't have to share every detail of your life with everyone you meet, full. And you certainly don't have to explain or justify your feelings to people who aren't interested in understanding them. Sometimes it's not about being secretive, full, it's about being discerning. You can still be open, loving, and kind, but you don't have to reveal your deepest emotions to people who won't respect or care for them, full. Protecting your feelings is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. We are conditioned by society to believe that the more we give, the more love we will receive, full. We are taught that emotional vulnerability is the key to deeper connections. But there's a fine line between being vulnerable and being taken advantage of, full. Emotional vulnerability is an act of trust. It is meant to create deeper intimacy, not to leave us exposed to emotional neglect or abuse, full. When you find yourself constantly giving of your emotions to people who are indifferent, dismissive, or even critical of them, full, it's time to recognize that you are giving too much to the wrong people. This doesn't mean you should shut down or stop being vulnerable altogether, full. It means you need to be selective about who you open up to. Relationships should be built on a foundation of mutual respect, understanding, and care, full. If you are constantly pouring your emotions into someone who does not reciprocate, you are not experiencing true connection. You are investing in a one-sided relationship. Over time, this emotional imbalance can leave you feeling isolated and unappreciated. Your needs are just as important as anyone else's, full. And it's crucial to acknowledge that there are people who will not value or care for your feelings in the way you deserve. Full, this isn't a judgment on you or your worth. It's simply a reality of human interaction. Not everyone is capable of showing up emotionally, and that's okay, full. What matters is that you learn to identify when it's time to step back and protect your heart, full. When you begin to set emotional boundaries and stop wasting your feelings on people who do not value them, you will find that your emotional well-being improves, full. You will feel lighter, more empowered, and more confident in your relationships. Full. By choosing to invest your emotional energy in people who genuinely care about you and respect your feelings, you are creating space for healthier, full, more fulfilling connections. These are the relationships that will lift you up, that will encourage your growth, full, and that will offer the emotional support you need when life gets tough, full. It is important to remind yourself that you are worthy of deep emotional connection and that your feelings deserve to be heard and valued, full. There is no shame in wanting emotional reciprocity in your relationships, full. You are not being demanding or unreasonable when you expect others to appreciate and respect your feelings. Your emotions are an essential part of who you are, full, and they deserve to be treated with care and respect. By recognizing when it's time to step away from people who do not honor your emotions, full, you are making room for people who will. This is an act of self-love and self-respect. As you begin to protect your emotions and invest in relationships that nourish you, full, you will experience a profound shift in your sense of self-worth. You will stop seeking approval or validation from those who cannot offer it, and instead, full, you will find peace in knowing that you are enough just as you are. Your emotional health will thrive as you focus on building meaningful, full, supportive connections with people who recognize the value of your feelings. And in the process, you will cultivate a life that is filled with love, respect, full, and deep emotional fulfillment. So don't waste your feelings on people who don't value them. Your emotions are too precious for that, full. Choose wisely where you invest your heart, full. And remember that you deserve to be surrounded by people who will appreciate the gift of your vulnerability and honor your emotions with the respect they deserve. In life, full, we often think of our relationships as being one of the most important aspects of our existence. We invest deeply in friendships, family connections, full, and romantic relationships, hoping to build meaningful bonds where we feel seen, understood, and cherished. But along the way, full, we may also encounter people who do not reciprocate the same emotional investment, people who fail to value what we feel and dismiss the vulnerability we offer, full. It's important to understand that not everyone is worthy of access to our deepest emotions. Your feelings are powerful and unique to you, full. And they should be treated with care, respect, and reverence. When you pour your heart out to someone, you are giving them a piece of your soul, full. And this is not something to be taken lightly. Emotions are deeply personal. They are a reflection of our values, our past experiences, our hopes, and our fears, full. And the reality is that some people simply don't have the capacity or willingness to recognize the significance of your emotions, full. They may not know how to respond to what you share, or they might take your feelings for granted, assuming that they can treat them as unimportant. When this happens, full, it can be incredibly painful and disheartening. You may feel misunderstood, dismissed, or even invisible, full. But the important lesson here is that you don't have to give your feelings to people who aren't equipped to handle them, who won't appreciate them, full, or who won't reciprocate your emotional investment. Think about how you feel when someone truly values your emotions. When someone listens to you, full, understands where you're coming from, and responds with empathy and care, there is a deep sense of connection that forms between you. You feel seen, heard, full, and understood, and that feeling is incredibly powerful. Now think about the opposite when you share something important with someone only to have them brush it off, full, belittle it, or fail to acknowledge your vulnerability. How does that make you feel? Most likely, it makes you feel small, unimportant, full, and perhaps even regretful for having opened up in the first place. The truth is, not everyone is capable of recognizing the importance of your emotions, and that's okay. You don't need to make them understand, full. You simply need to realize when it's time to stop investing your emotional energy in relationships that don't nurture or appreciate it, full. Your emotions are too valuable to be wasted on people who don't value them. Full. Just as you wouldn't give your time or resources to someone who doesn't treat them with respect. Full. You shouldn't give your emotions to someone who won't recognize their worth. This is not about being selfish or closed off. Full. It's about setting healthy boundaries and protecting your emotional well-being. Full. When you continually invest in relationships where your feelings are dismissed or overlooked, you're doing a disservice to yourself. Full. You're allowing your emotional energy to be depleted without receiving the support and care that you deserve in return. Over time, full. This can lead to feelings of resentment, exhaustion, and emotional burnout. It can also make you question your worth. Full. As you start to wonder if maybe your emotions really aren't as valuable as you thought. But I want to tell you today that your feelings are important, powerful. They are a part of who you are, and they deserve to be respected. You are deserving of relationships where your emotions are honored, full, where you feel safe to express yourself without fear of judgment or indifference. When you stop wasting your feelings on people who don't value them, full, you make room for healthier, more fulfilling relationships that nourish your heart and soul. Full. One of the most liberating realizations you can have is that you don't need to explain yourself or justify your feelings to anyone. Full. Your emotions are valid simply because you feel them. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth or defend the things that matter to you. Full. When you find yourself in a relationship where you constantly have to explain why you feel the way you do, or where you're met with indifference, full, it's time to take a step back and reassess whether that relationship is truly serving you. Healthy relationships are built on mutual understanding, respect, and empathy. Full. In a healthy relationship, you should never feel the need to explain your emotions to the point of exhaustion. You should feel comfortable being yourself, full, knowing that the person you're with accepts you for who you are, emotions and all, full. It's also important to recognize that not everyone has the emotional capacity to support you in the way you need. Some people may be emotionally unavailable, full, distracted by their own struggles, or simply unable to offer the empathy and understanding that you deserve. And that's okay, full. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy of emotional connection. It simply means that this particular person is not the right one to invest your feelings in, full. There's no shame in acknowledging that someone cannot meet your emotional needs, full. It's simply a matter of finding the right people who are willing and able to support you and choosing to prioritize relationships where your emotions are valued, full. We live in a world where we are often encouraged to give of ourselves selflessly, full. We're told that love is about sacrifice, and that real connection comes from being open and vulnerable with others. While these things are true to some extent, full, there's an important caveat. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If you constantly give your emotions to people who do not value them, full, you will eventually find yourself drained, disconnected, and emotionally exhausted. Your cup will run dry, and you will have nothing left to give. It is vital, therefore, full, to learn how to protect your emotional energy and only share it with people who will treat it with the care it deserves. By doing so, full, you not only protect your own well-being, but you also create space for deeper, full, more meaningful relationships that will enrich your life in ways that one-sided relationships never could. In order to do this, full, it's essential to learn how to set emotional boundaries. Full, emotional boundaries are the invisible lines we draw to protect ourselves from people who may take advantage of our feelings or who don't recognize the importance of what we share. Full. Setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting people off or shutting them out completely. It simply means learning when to say no, when to protect your heart, full, and when to step away from relationships that are not fulfilling or supportive. Setting emotional boundaries is an act of self-care. Full, it's about recognizing that you are worthy of love, respect, and understanding, and that you should not settle for anything less. So, as you continue your journey through life, remember that your feelings are valuable. They are a reflection of who you are and what matters most to you. You don't have to waste them on people who do not appreciate or respect them. Instead, focus your emotional energy on the relationships that truly matter, those that lift you up, support you, and recognize the worth of your heart. When you do this, you will find that your life becomes more fulfilling, more peaceful, and more aligned with the kind of emotional connection that you truly deserve. It's time to protect your feelings, to guard your heart, and to stop wasting your emotions on people who don't value them. You are worth more than that, and you deserve relationships that honor the depth of your emotions and the beauty of your soul. Emotions are powerful. They define much of our experience in life, shaping how we interact with others and how we perceive the world around us. They influence our decisions, our relationships, and even the direction of our lives. Because of this, they deserve to be treated with care and respect. Too often, we can find ourselves investing our deepest feelings in people who don't truly value them, leaving us feeling unappreciated and emotionally drained. This is an important lesson. Never waste your feelings on people who do not value your emotions. You are worthy of emotional reciprocity, and the people you choose to share your heart with should honor and respect the vulnerability you offer. At its core, every emotion we feel is a reflection of who we are. It is an expression of our personal experiences, beliefs, values, and desires. When we share our emotions with others, we are sharing a piece of ourselves, one that holds deep meaning and significance. Emotions are not just fleeting feelings, they are a part of our identity, shaping how we navigate the world. When we allow someone access to our emotions, we are offering them a part of us that is often tender, raw, and vulnerable. It takes courage to be emotionally open with others, and that's why it's so important to ensure that we are sharing our feelings with those who can genuinely appreciate and honor them. Imagine sharing something deeply personal with someone only to have it brushed off or dismissed. How does that make you feel? Most likely, it makes you feel disregarded and unimportant. Emotions, after all, are meant to connect us to others. They are supposed to be understood, validated, and reciprocated. When someone doesn't value your emotions, it's not just a matter of a missed connection. It's a rejection of your inner self. This can be incredibly painful because we naturally want to feel seen and heard, especially by those we care about. And when our emotions are disregarded, it can lead to feelings of isolation, confusion, and sometimes even self-doubt. That's why it's so critical to recognize when we're wasting our emotions on people who aren't capable of understanding or valuing them. Not everyone is in a place to offer the empathy or support that we need. Some people may be too wrapped up in their own lives to truly engage with us on an emotional level, while others may not know how to respond to our feelings in a meaningful way. This isn't a reflection of our worth. It's simply a reality that we all need to come to terms with. Not everyone has the emotional capacity to meet us where we are, and that's okay. What matters is that we understand this and adjust accordingly. The pain of investing our emotions in people who don't value them comes from the sense of imbalance it creates. When we continually give more emotionally than we receive, it can create feelings of depletion, frustration, and even resentment. We begin to feel as though our emotions are not worthy of care, simply because they are not being reciprocated. This is where the importance of self-awareness comes in. By learning to recognize when we are giving too much to people who don't appreciate our feelings, we can take steps to protect our emotional energy and stop wasting it on relationships that aren't fulfilling. It's crucial to understand that not everyone deserves to know the most intimate details of your life or to have access to your deepest emotions. Full. While it's important to be vulnerable with others and share our experiences, full, there is a fine line between healthy emotional openness and oversharing with people who do not have the ability to handle our vulnerability with the respect it deserves. Full. Sometimes the best thing we can do is hold back a little, protect our emotional space, full, and reserve our most significant feelings for the people who truly value and understand them. This is not about being closed off or unwilling to connect, full. It's about being wise and discerning with whom you choose to invest your emotional energy, full. Think about the times when you've shared something important with someone and they didn't respond in a way that made you feel valued, full. Maybe they ignored your feelings or made light of something you were going through. How did that make you feel? Hurt, disappointed. If you were honest with yourself, full, you may have felt a little angry or frustrated. And it's perfectly normal to feel that way. When we share something emotional, full, we expect a certain level of empathy and understanding. If we don't receive it, we can feel as though we've been let down, or worse, full, that our feelings are not worth respecting. This is why it is so important to protect your emotions by being selective about who you let into your inner circle, full. You need to be with people who respect your vulnerability and honor your feelings. When you allow people into your life who cannot appreciate your emotions, full, you are essentially giving them access to something sacred without getting anything of value in return. Over time, this can lead to emotional burnout, full, leaving you feeling disconnected, isolated, and unimportant. But when you invest your emotions in relationships that are nurturing, supportive, full, and emotionally reciprocated, you will feel empowered and uplifted, full. The right people will show up when you begin to protect your emotional energy and only share your heart with those who will value it, full. The decision to protect your emotions is not a form of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect. You are worthy of deep emotional connection, full, and you deserve to be in relationships where your emotions are honored and treated with care, full. Protecting your emotional energy is about setting boundaries and ensuring that you are not drained by people who cannot offer you the same respect and care, full. It is important to recognize that you do not need to explain yourself to everyone. You do not have to justify your feelings to people who do not care to understand them, full. Your emotions are valid and they do not require anyone's approval. You are entitled to your feelings, full, and you deserve to be in relationships where they are understood and respected. In many ways, full, learning to protect your emotions is a process of learning to value yourself more deeply. When you start recognizing your own worth and the importance of your feelings, full, you begin to see that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to beg for someone to validate your emotions, full, nor do you need to justify why you feel the way you do. Simply by being who you are and expressing your feelings authentically, you are already worthy of respect, full, and the right people will recognize that, full. Setting boundaries around your emotions is not about being cold or distant. It's about protecting your heart and ensuring that it is treated with the love and respect it deserves, full. It's about realizing that you don't need to share everything with everyone. Sometimes less is more, full. By choosing to protect your emotions and only invest in people who truly value them, you create the space for healthier, full, more meaningful relationships that will nourish your spirit and bring you the support you deserve, full. You deserve to be surrounded by people who not only listen to your feelings, but who respond with care, understanding, and compassion. So, full, stop wasting your emotions on people who don't appreciate them. Instead, invest your heart in relationships that lift you up, that encourage your growth, full, and that show genuine care for your emotional well-being. When you do this, you'll find that your life is filled with more joy, peace, full, and emotional fulfillment than you ever thought possible. Protect your heart, guard your emotions, full, And don't be afraid to reserve your most vulnerable self for the people who truly deserve it. You are worth it, and your feelings matter.